Shout out to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. In this Civ overview, we're going to be taking a look at the Aztecs. Now, while Aztecs were at one point considered among the best civilizations in the game, they've had a slow motion decline in both performance and popularity over the last 5 or so years, to the point that on the latter at least, they're among the lowest win rate civs today, particularly for the top 1% of players. That's a little surprising, given they have several early eco bonuses, and in this video we'll be breaking down the impact of those, as well as their unique unit, techs, strengths, and weaknesses. Let's check them out. To start with their team bonus, Aztecs and their allies generate 33% more gold from relics, or more technically get an extra 10 gold per minute from each one garrisoned. To get a sense of how quickly that adds up, with 5 relics for your team, that's potentially 500 gold every 10 minutes, or capturing every relic in a 4v4 game would net an extra 800 gold every 10 minutes on top of the usual amount. That's without even bringing Wolf Hill or a lucky mega random generation into the discussion. This bonus works well either as a personal boost for Aztecs in 1v1s, given their large monk focus and very gold-intensive Imperial units like Eagles, but also helps out if you have, say, a Lithuanian teammate, who will be rushing for the relics already. Moving on to their Civ bonuses, the first unofficial one is they start with an Eagle Scout instead of a Scout Cavalry. While this eventually becomes a disadvantage, in Dark Age this actually works in the Aztecs' favor. They move more slowly, but are eagle-eyed enough to see farther than the Scout Cavalry, and when it's all put together, Eagles actually uncover the map about 12% faster. They also beat Scout Cavalry 1-on-1 in Dark Age, thanks to higher attack and HP. That said, in Feudal Age, the Scout Cavalry benefits from some passive buffs to their speed, line of sight, and attack, which end up making it the superior unit at both scouting and combat, at least temporarily. The Eagle Scout line eventually has the last laugh by gaining +2 anti-cavalry attack in Castle Age, so there's a lot of back and forth, but the main takeaway is Aztecs at least begin the game with a slight scouting advantage, which you may even notice as a consistent score lead in the early game. Their next bonus gives you another small early advantage by starting with 50 extra gold. At one point, this was free loom, whereas now you still have to research that tech, but the bonus still gives you a top-tier militia rush. Where most civs have to mine 10 gold in order to get loom and train 3 militia, Aztecs start with enough gold to cover loom and 5 militia without mining anything, which is significantly harder for enemy villagers or their own militia to fight back against, immediately putting opponents on the defensive. Alternately, you can just bank the resources, which help indirectly with an archer play or even a fast castle. Next, we have their big eco bonus, which is villagers carry 3 extra resources. While this theoretically helps villagers with all gathering, in practice, depending on the placement of camps and crowding, it's usually just a modest 1 to 3% collection boost. Where it really helps instead is with farming, where carrying more translates directly into less time spent walking around the farm. It's enough that prior to Wheelbarrow, Aztecs have the 4th fastest farmers after Khmer, Poles, and Slavs, and after Wheelbarrow are still top 5. It's not far off to say they're receiving most of the economic benefits of Wheelbarrow from the start of the game, significantly earlier than even Vikings. Late game, at least after Handcart, that farming advantage mostly disappears as the farm's rate cap starts to come into play. But really anytime you have a poorly placed farm or a woodline that's creeping away from your camp, there's still some benefit from this bonus. Now there are downsides to quickly mention though. The first is you have to be extra diligent with Aztecs to force drop off food from sheep. Collectively, your 6 shepherds can hold 18 more food than usual, so while they may have collected the 50 food you need for the next villager, they may not have given it to you yet, and it's something to stay on top of with the resource drop-off button. At the same time, a similar thing is happening throughout your entire economy for the whole game, where your villagers are generally holding on to more resources at any given moment than other players. Another side quirk of this bonus is that usually 3 villagers on a deer fill up their 35 food carry capacity and leave an awkward 12 or 13 food left over on the deer, leading to a very inefficient second trip. Aztecs, on the other hand, carry almost exactly the full amount in one trip with those same 3 villagers. Moving on, their next bonus is actually improving in the new patch, and is that they create their military units 15% faster, which stacks on top of any other team bonus given by Britons, Goths, or Celts to supercharge your production. In this case, military units refers not just to barracks in the archery range, but also siege workshops, docks, and castles. The big exception is ironically your monks, which are not military. So despite being the monk civ, Aztecs don't have a creation bonus for those unless you have a Lithuanian ally, again making that an interesting civ pairing. This bonus does apply to any buildings you convert with your monks though, so monks indirectly can get in on the action. Probably the most salient moments for this bonus are when making those aforementioned 5 militia, taking only slightly longer than most civs would make 4, as well as in any sort of feudal archery range play. Keep in mind, for double range archers, you will want an extra villager on gold to sustain that, so 8 instead of the usual 7 gold miners. And finally, their last bonus is that monks gain 5 HP for every monastery technology you research. With the recent addition of Devotion and Sanctities plus 15 HP as its base effect, that gives your Aztec monks a potentially very satisfying 100 HP in total, more than double the usual amount. In fairness, Faith and Heresy are pretty expensive to grab just for the HP benefit in mind, but even without those, your monks can survive a direct siege onager or bombard cannon shot. Considering just surviving an extra second can be the difference between a conversion and not, this bonus alone instantly puts Aztec monks in the top tier. So that's their bonuses, with the common themes of extra gold and being set up for an aggressive opening. Next, let's move on and take a look at their unique unit, the Jaguar Warrior. As usual, I recently did a deep dive of this unit, but to summarize the main takeaways, this is your anti-infantry specialist. Side by side, it's slightly beefier than the longsword, with more HP, attack, as well as a bit more speed. The tricky part is they require castles and cost notably more than the swordsman line, particularly with the tech supplies researched. Their main draw is in that they have plus 10 anti-infantry bonus damage, which allows them to beat even very good swordsman units in Castle and Imperial Age, as well as handle pikemen, eagles, and most infantry unique units, with a few notable exceptions. Ultimately, where it lands a little flat though, is very often the champion especially can give better value against even things the Jaguar is supposed to specialize in. Probably the best example is with balanced resources against Imperial Age halberdiers, where champions perform basically the same as Jaguar Warriors once cost is taken into account, and champions actually end up performing, if anything, better against enemy eagles. For that reason, I hesitate to suggest the Jaguar's role is always anti-infantry, and instead I think it largely has a more specific role of being anti-swordsman line, particularly in support of your own Eagle Warriors. Frequently, when you spam eagles as Aztecs, your opponents will make swordsmen, which have an attack bonus against those, while having the Jaguar Warrior, even in small numbers, gives you a counter response to that. Of course, there's a bit of an intangible benefit to the Jaguar Warrior as well, where players may avoid creating barracks units or their own infantry unique unit, knowing that you have such a strong counter available. Next up, staying with the castle, but moving on to your unique techs, the first one gives skirmishers plus 1 attack and range. Keep in mind the Aztecs are missing the final armor upgrade, so their skirmishers are a little more squishy mishers, but end up unique for having both plus 1 attack and range over their generic counterparts, with notably 2 more range over hand cannoneers. Given Aztecs also lack the halberdier upgrade and the Hussar line entirely, skirmishers then become almost by default your best trash unit thanks to this tech. Note that it also helps if you have a Vietnamese or Berber ally, as Imperial skirmishers and genitours are also improved as well. Their other unique tech, Garland Wars, gives their infantry plus 4 attack, affecting all 3 barracks line units and the Jaguar Warrior. To start with the champion, this allows them to roughly keep up with other top-tier civilizations, beating for example the Viking and Bulgarian militia lines head-to-head. There are a lot of good champion civs these days, and they're not quite the best of the best, but this brings them into that higher tier discussion. In contrast, when it comes to its help for pikemen, things are a bit more situational. Garland Wars, on the one hand, does allow them to beat a generic halberdier by requiring 1 fewer attack, so directly head-to-head in spearline fights, they're actually above average. On the other hand, often the main thing you want from the spearline is to be anti-cavalry, and lacking halberdier means you miss out on 10 extra bonus damage, which Garland Wars does not make up for. Battling Hussar, Heavy Camel, and fully upgraded Paladins, Aztec pikemen end up performing worse across the board, at least compared to generic halberdiers. Their Eagle Warriors then also come out somewhat improved by the tech, but are arguably the worst of the Eagle Warriors among their peers. To their credit, Aztec Eagle Warriors with 9 plus 8 attack defeat villagers, arbalesters, Hussars, and paladins at least 1 attack sooner than mines or Incas, albeit without the same level of durability when raiding, so it's a bit of a trade-off. Still, the fact you're so reliant on infantry in one way or another, and they're all helped out by this tech, means it'll often be worth the admittedly steep price. All those relics you collect will definitely come in handy, paying the 750 gold cost in particular. So that's the unique unit in text, further emphasizing infantry, but also giving some much needed help to your trash units. Next though, let's take a look at their wider tech tree, starting with the archers. We haven't really talked about them much, but players very commonly treat Aztecs as an archer civ in the early to mid game, going archers and their crossbows, helped out by your generally strong economy and faster production. They lack the final armor and thumb ring, but are still a very viable option throughout the game. You then have extra attack and range on your skirmishers, with no hand cannoneer or cavalry archer for obvious reasons. It's not the best archery range, but has its moments, and it's a serviceable B. Next up for infantry, missing halberdier is the big blemish, with the caveat that all of these have potentially +4 attack in Imperial Age. Between a top-tier militia line opening, the versatility of Eagle Warriors, and situational moments for pikemen and Jaguar Warriors, everything feels like it has a role to play, and I'd give them an A-. Next up for cavalry, there's not too much to talk about here, other than the Untitled Warrior, if you successfully convert an enemy stable, or start with one, as happens in 1% of mega random generations, as a bit of a novelty. Moving on to siege, this is another aspect we haven't really touched on, but Aztecs have really solid siege, as most infantry civs tend to. Between the siege ram and onager with siege engineers, you have some great options in the late game, also being created faster as well, and overall it's a B+. As for the Navy, again things start out pretty well, thanks to their 15% faster creation helping build up your fire ship or galley numbers, and the economy is also above average. I'd say it's enough for a B, despite no direct naval bonus. That said, things fall off hard in Imperial Age, being one of only 2 civs to lack galleon, and also have no way to bombard the shore from range, missing dronemen and cannon galleons. You're basically forced into fire ships without a civ bonus, and drop to a C- on water late for a C overall. Things do bounce back at the monastery though, where their extra HP and access to all techs earns them an A+. You even have the extra incentive for relics to encourage you to make monks in the first place, and they can really help deal especially with good knight civilizations. Next up for defenses, Aztecs are one of only a handful of civilizations missing masonry along with hoardings, and their tower options also aren't amazing either, but get some points for fortified walls and bracer. I'd say it's a C+, though Aztecs are really meant to be played more aggressively. And finally, for their trash units, that is, units that don't cost gold, missing the entire Hussar line and halberdier is a pretty rough start. Even the skirmishers lacking the final armor appear below average until we consider their unique techs, which situationally make both the skirmisher and pikemen above average, at least head-to-head against generic versions. While you lack a bit of flexibility, it's still a very respectable B, especially if you have a couple of relics and can sneak in the odd siege unit. So to wrap up with some final thoughts, while Aztecs no longer have quite the same status as in their glory days on the ladder, there's no question they have quality units backed up by a strong economy. When it comes to strategy, the 5 Militia Rush is of course their signature opening, but of course they can also just be played as a straightforward archer civ. Eagle Scouts in Feudal Age can also seem tempting, but are best used sparingly, as they take about twice as long to train in Feudal Age as they do in Castle, and generally an archer range focus is the safer default. Going up to Castle Age then opens up various options, with crossbows, monks, siege, or Eagle Warriors at that point, all of which receive at least some extra benefit, with pikes or skirmishers also mixed in as needed. Aztecs then have a strong Imperial Age power spike, with elite Eagle Warriors as an always dangerous unit, while also unlocking the full potential of their siege and monks. The Arbalesters, while also not fully upgraded, are still a totally reasonable choice, since they have Bracer. That said, if you can't close the game quickly in Imperial Age or secure a good trade line, Aztecs can falter a bit due to how hungry for gold Eagles, monks, Arbalesters, and siege can all be. They're clearly meant to be more of an early aggression civ, when your farmers especially are putting you economically a step ahead of most opponents. It's a nice little nod to the fact that corn, also called maize, was originally first cultivated in southern Mexico, and is now the most consumed grain in the world by weight, ahead of both wheat and rice. In fact, I've decided to get into the farming business myself recently, opening up a new company called Spirit of the Straw, featuring the most amazing maize in the world. You can book a tour today through a slick website and made in minutes, thanks to this video's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a great-looking website, engage with your audience, and then sell anything from products to content to time all in one place. Using their built-in templates, you can easily customize a website to your preferred aesthetic and what you're looking to do with it. That could include selling physical goods or digital content, including access to your own video library, with Squarespace handling the payment side of things so you can focus on the bigger picture. The search engine optimization tools then help your website show up in searches more often, so you can continue to grow and scale your business more effectively. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/spiritofthelaw to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. So that was an updated relook at the Aztecs. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.